responded to me. Had it all changed up and everything and sent it to me, and I didn't get it. And I'm like, what's going on?
We had
So I got with Amy yesterday, because I called her office. She said, Tracy, we sent that to you 3 times.
Well, I read the packet and I thought, this isn't right.
Yeah,
I'm glad you got it.
yeah.
I'm glad that we discussed that enough to get those changes in there.
So we had a place.
We're talking about the medical care facility.
Oh, yeah. By the time we got done.
The changes that the attorneys recommend.
Yeah.
And I put the new resolution in the folder, so that when you guys go to pull that, it shows the revised one in there.
Oh, super.
The corrected one.
Thank you.
Did Paul talk to you about our meeting yesterday? Did Paul talk to you about our meeting yesterday?
What are you guys doing?
I'm just saying hi. I don't see them
They're all
anymore.
waving at you and smiling.
Yeah, I don't see them anymore. They're very busy.
That bumps out into the lobby area and it looks to the window area. So we kind of sit right in and look at what.
That'd be, I think that would be a positive move for people looking for permits and so forth.
I was gonna say I've got 9:59.
Yeah, where it's,
What do you have? You have
we got a
9:59.
minute to go.
Okay.
Brian and I.
You're way ahead of the game right now.
He said, because the development on the Newport Insurance now is for if you get in the drain commission down there, move her upstairs and use the back part of that office for the front of the court files. Which would open that up for him.
I'm sure everything we're gonna have some
Oh, yeah.
resistance and concern. because
The judge and
I'd really like to see.
the commissioner.
Oh, yeah.
Sharon's done a great job with it. And then the bilingual part.
It's huge. It's been good.
Yeah. And then, you know, I've heard of Penny, but I didn't really know exactly what she did.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome, Easter weekend. Roll call, please.
Am I supposed to call you first?
You can.
Okay. Mr. Erickson.
Here.
Mr. Morse.
Yes, here.
Mr. Banks.
Here.
Mr. Hardy.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Thank you. Minutes from October 26th of 2023.
So moved, Walker.
Support.
Moved by Walker, supported by Beggs. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Would there be any changes to the agenda? Would anyone have any changes they'd like to make into this morning's agenda? If there are no changes, seek an approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion, Morse.
I'll support Hardy. Moved by Morse, supported by Hardy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Public comment. Would there be any public comment this morning from anyone? Therefore, I'd like to introduce Mr. James Kelly from the MSU Extension with his annual report.
Good morning, James.
Good morning, Morse.
And thank you for your time this morning. I'd like to start by sharing the mission of MSU Extension. I don't think we share that mission enough. It's a realization over the last few years, but since 1917, of course, when we started our formal partnership with Oceana County, we've had the same mission, and that is to help people improve their lives through an educational process that applies knowledge to critical issues, needs, and opportunities. I'll share with you that MSU Extension is about to complete a strategic planning process that's going to provide a roadmap for us to continue focusing on that mission for the years to come. Our local staff do a great job of putting that mission into practice, so I'm just going to highlight again briefly each of those local staff. Many of you know that team at this stage. Dr. Ben Whirling is our vegetable educator, extremely busy this time of year. He's just wrapped up his Asparagus Day event down in New Era. Had 150 growers come into the region from all across the states and internationally to hear the latest research on asparagus, commodity industry news. Also had an interesting visitor from the Bureau of Labor, federal visitor to talk about H2A challenges within not just that industry, but of course generally across the ag industry. Dr. Emily Laidley is our tree fruit educator. She had a similar event 2 weeks ago, which is called the Spring Hort Meeting, so that's specifically focused on tree fruit education, presenting research from our various professors on campus who utilize the research station in Oceana County. She had about 80 growers at that meeting, again, focusing on the latest and greatest information, delivering that so that the farm communities can be more efficient in their practices. Sarah Shaner continues to lead a strong 4-H program in Oceana. I'll share some more specific 4-H numbers shortly, but Sarah saw some solid growth in 2023. I think all of you know Kathy Walicki, our office manager. She provides an integral support function to not just Extension, but many other agencies in the area. She's involved with Farm Bureau. She is involved with MDOT pesticide management. She supports the Great Lake Expo, which is a major event down in Grand Rapids. She's half-time admin for the district, supporting me in my role, and then half-time for the county. She also represented us more broadly in that strategic planning process, which was excellent to have that local representation. Amber Pumford has been providing 15 hours of 4-H administrative support per week, 5 hours of support to Curtis Burdett as part of the Oceana County Economic Development piece. She is also the key administrative support for our statewide soil testing services, which I'll reference shortly. Finally, Lisa Fleury has completed her first year with Extension in the role of community nutrition instructor. She has created some strong partnerships in the county over the past year. One of her passions is farm market education. She's had some great interactions with various farm markets, and specifically New Era has led a creative program which I will highlight. I'll remind you that the West Michigan Research Station is housed within MSU's College of Ag and Natural Resources, right alongside Extension. It's run through the Ag Bio Research Department. We have 2 staff that manage that facility and work with Extension to carry out various research projects under the leadership of our faculty and in partnership with our Extension educators. So again, we are extremely thankful to have an outstanding facility right here in Oceana County. So overall, 2023 was a strong year for Extension in Oceana County. You have been sent electronically and looks like physically the report. I'm going to highlight a little bit of the data. Obviously, be available for some questions regarding that. I encourage you to pass that report on to anyone that you think might have some interest in that. Again, I'm hoping that my quarterly reports, which give you a little bit more of the storytelling and the background of individual programs, fills in any gaps in terms of this just being a little more data-based. So in terms of that data, just some clarification, it's always an interesting task each year to look through the reports and the data that we collect to kind of pick some pieces that we think might be of interest to you. So I'm just going to explain a couple of them, but not necessarily read through all of it. 15,362 program participants. I want to provide some clarification on that. That is a number of participants that participated in programs that were led by Oceana County staff. It doesn't mean that they all came from Oceana County, those participants, but that's kind of the reach that our local staff are having, so 15,000 or so folks. In Oceana County specifically, it was a little under 1,600 county residents that participated in our programs in 2023, and that was in 241 programs. You will find, and that's in page 3, that a lot of Oceana County residents are still participating pretty heavily on our online offerings. So 1 or 2 folks might jump into a hops presentation or a beekeeping or some other specific training that we offer. The 5,400 or so office contacts, that means folks who have called, emailed, stopped in. It's a pretty busy office, as you would sense through that number. 965 excuse me, Oceania youth participating in our extension programs. You can see some growth percentages under those numbers, which I think is important to highlight. Again, it was a year of growth in 2023. Facebook continues to be our primary way of communicating our activity, 53,000 views of our Facebook page locally. We sell soil test kits. That's a service that we have taken on within Extension from the broader university over 2023, and that was a big deal to us. It's a long-term service that the university has provided, but they decided to shut down that service in 2022. And Extension said, hey, we think that's important to our local community, so we took on that role. And Amber Pumford, who sits in Oceana County, is steering the administrative side of that for the state, on top of her other responsibilities. So to still be selling soil test kits is a big deal for us, and hopefully something that's appreciated within the community. Along with that, 504 plat books sold, so we continue to be the primary seller and of course the creator of the plat book for Oceana County. And in terms of talking of sales, it's important or interesting to recognize that about $27,000 worth of bulletins, that's written materials, were sold through the Oceana County office. I'll tell you that a large number of that was through Kathy's work at the Great Lakes Expo event, which of course draws hundreds of thousands of folks into Grand Rapids. I'll skip page 3. I'm going to come back to 4-H numbers, which are at the bottom of that page, and then just added one additional page, which was the back page, of course, to highlight some of the more specific events to one focus area that Extension has. And of course, for that, Oceana County, I picked the ag sector, recognizing that in Oceana County, this is the data I found from last year, $212 million raised through the ag economy just in Oceana County. So recognizing the strength of ag in Oceana County, it was important to me to highlight some of those specific ag-related trainings and events that we held in Oceana County in 2023. So we're going to move on from that report and just fill in a few gaps. Again, I always like to remind you it's not just the staff in Oceana County that have an impact in terms of the Extension network. We have expertise coming in from outside of Oceana County, and I'll highlight the work of Dan O'Keefe, who is our charter fishing expert, our fisheries expert, who deals with the Great Lakes and the rivers in terms of commercial fishing. He continues to be actively involved in the charter businesses up and down the coastline, providing, again, research to those folks. Eric Elgin is our water resource educator who works out of Newaygo officially, Newaygo County. It continues to be actively involved in so many different initiatives, a lot of them dealing with invasive species, and there are a couple in Oceana County that we are continuing to work and monitor with our partners at the Conservation District. We did some training at Crystal Township from our educator up in Manistee, or from Manistee, on zoning for solar. So most of you know the width and depth of our programming at Extension, and that it certainly leads further than our ag-specific history. So zoning and solar is part of our community vitality team. We have lots of expertise that we'd love to share with folks, and again, continue to appeal to you to help us connect with those in need. One area that you don't hear too much about during the year, but I think is worth mentioning too, is our support for small businesses, and that's through our product innovation team. So we have a counselor in Muskegon who works out of a farm facility on the property of Muskegon Community College. Farm facility is the food production innovation and what's the word I'm looking for? The innovation hub that allows new businesses to test out new equipment, to get the support of MSU to kind of ramp up their business to the next stage. People like Clarence also provide support to individuals looking to just really start their business from ground zero. So he had 4 clients in Oceana County, provided 71 hours of counseling to those staff, and those 4 businesses in 2023 had an annual combined sale total of $127,000. Quick note about 4-H. Again, I've referred to the fact that 2023 was a year of growth for 4-H. We saw an increase in youth membership of 7%. Our club membership, club numbers increased by 20%. And perhaps most importantly, our volunteer numbers jumped to 60, which was a 13% increase. You'll find that the focus on volunteers is essential because without our volunteers, the clubs don't run and 4-H doesn't run. So to see growth in the volunteer area continues to give me hope that Oceana County will have more and more youth involved with 4-H. Sarah continues to invest her time in multiple areas in terms of youth readiness. She's an active member of the Oceana College Access Network team. So she's involved in holding career days, career fair, and just bringing exposure to all kinds of ag and STEM related initiatives in the county. So as usual, I've rushed through a lot of different information pretty quickly. I hope that these annual reports don't provide any, I shouldn't say I hope they don't, I hope they do provide an update, but no surprise in terms of the work we do. But I am of course available and willing to take any questions you might have at this stage.
Yes, Mr. Morris.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the report. You know, one thing we talked a lot about 2 years ago was mental health, and MSU was getting moving into the mental health extension as we move into that. Have they backed off on that focus, or where?
So we have 2 different levels of programming. So through one area, which is our adults, that's our health and nutrition, we have had ongoing delivery of mental health first aid is one of the primary resources. We do a lot of our training online, and so community members can take care of that, or business owners can go through that programming. More recently, we've got into a different version of that program, which is called Mental Health First Aid for Youth and Teens. So we are working with different school systems. I would need to, in fact, I'll give you an update in our quarterly report, which will be coming to you in the next few weeks. In terms of what we're doing with school systems in Oceana County, but that program is certainly up and running now in terms of the youth mental health first aid. Thanks.
Mr. Kelly, you had mentioned the H2 workers in your conversation with labor. Nick Ullman has had something on the internet of recent about the struggles that are in front of us this year with our asparagus. And after we had Asparagus Day and your conversation with the Labor Department, what do you got on?
No solution and lots of frustration. There seems to be some passing of the buck between some of the agencies involved, of course, in kind of coordinating the requirements of that program. Frustration within the departments themselves in terms of coming to a workable solution. Recognition that it's providing a burden on not just the ag community, but various different kind of worker needs. So we didn't hear a solution, but I think it was helpful for the local farm community to get a little better understanding of what the issues were in terms of the policy side, and that it's extremely complex, as lots of things are, and because of that, it was proving to be a challenge to find a solution. So we didn't walk away with a lot of hope necessarily of change, but folks recognize that it's not it's worthy of attention at this point. It's creating a burden for many.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Stephen Carlson.
Sure. So, yeah, I'm not sure, I believe the hazard mitigation and master plan are up for consideration today. So really, I'm just here to address any questions or concerns. So I can update you on the hazard mitigation plan. Since October, we have been in a review process period where Michigan State Police reviewed the draft. I worked with Michigan State Police to make some tweaks to try to ensure that we get FEMA approval. Once we cleared that, they sent it on to FEMA for its review, and that came back with one request or one requirement, and that was in the implementation section. They took issue with the term local resources when we referred to potential funding sources under the action agenda. And so I found that a little curious because we used that term in the previous two plans, but they took exception this time around. So what I did was I went into what is Appendix F, which is a compilation of potential state and federal resources. And I picked out a number of things and replaced that term local resources with some other more specific potential sources of funding. And so one takeaway, I guess, is that the county is not tied or committed to anything with
Mr.
that
Erickson,
regards. So
Mr. Erickson.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, I believe that we are talking about the master plan now and not the hazardous mitigation. That's later in the,
You're correct, sir, and I didn't know if we'd kill two birds with one stone, but, you wanna shift gears back to the master plan and we'll,
I think we have the master plan listed now, we have to do that first, and we have to do the other hazardous, sorry, but
no,
we
No
should
problem.
follow with the
We got a
committee.
head start.
committee
no
assignment.
problem. Yeah. Fair enough. So, master plan, we just completed the 63-day public review period and concluded that with the public hearing at the Planning Commission earlier this month. I believe it was the 7th. We did not have anyone from the public attend the meeting. We did have two written comments that were submitted ahead of time and we discussed at the Planning Commission meeting. We made some minor tweaks to accommodate those, after some discussion, to accommodate those comments. And I've included those comments in the plan for public record. I don't know if there's anything else that's notable. I think that we had a lot of a positive process of updating the master plan. And I would offer Bill a chance to comment if there's anything else that, or prompt
Mr.
if
Erickson.
there's anything else for me to add.
Mr. Walker.
I just have a couple things. I took the opportunity in the last 2 days to read all of the master plan and all of the hazardous mitigation. And I spent more time reflecting back on the area that I'm from, having been a village president in Rothbury for 11 years and having represented the south part of the county on the board for 14 years. There's just a couple of things that I think that slipped through, you know, and I don't know that they're not anything to stop the whole thing, but I just think they need to be noted. They show up more in the hazardous mitigation, and I will mention that when we get to that. But in 2016, and I will give you this when I get done,
Okay.
what I'm reading from. In 2016, the Oceana County Board of Commissioners approved the annexation of Double J Ranch to the village of Rothbury. When we look at the master plan and we look at the maps in it, some of the maps show Rothbury being the original 1 square mile, and some of them show Double J Ranch added to it. I think the statistics on the seasonal population, when Rothbury was listed as an 18.8% increase, and Grant Township was listed as a 82.4% increase. I think that increase is based on a lot of Double J Ranch, which is actually inside the village of Rothbury. Now, it's difficult because when the festival comes in, the village of Rothbury issues all of the mass gathering ordinance for for the festival on Double J property. And the mass gathering, and they issue all of the 47 additional liquor licenses on Double J property. The property that is outside of the village of Rothbury and Grant Township, a lot of people don't know that Grant Township is a dry township for selling spirits. They can sell beer and wine, but they can't sell spirits. And when there is property leased outside from the private property owners, or the festival people themselves own several acres of property. They bought a couple of farms there. They own them. those mass gathering permits are approved by Grant Township, not by the village of Rothbury. So I think those numbers may be a little bit different. Another question that I had was, and maybe you can just answer this because I don't understand all of this, but on page 37, you talk about the jobs types in Oceana County, and I don't see where there is anything listed for hospitality jobs. And seeing nothing for hospitality that I would normally classify Double J Ranch to come under, I'm just curious, what area in that category do they come under?
Without looking at it,
I'll just
can't
leave
answer
this
that
for you so
question.
you'll have
Yeah.
the chance to look at it.
Yeah.
And,
I rely on the data sources, so I don't make the data.
okay, the last thing is on page 35, and I'll pass this down to you. It shows that Rothbury has a school in both the hazardous mitigation and in the master plan. There is a school building there, but Oceana High has not been in that building for probably 15 years. That is a maintenance building for Double J Ranch now. Just very minor things, but being from
I'd be
there,
happy to remove the school for sure.
being from there, I pick up on those things because I was actively involved in before the annexation to Double J Ranch, I was actively involved in the 425 agreement between the police department and Rothbury, which gave Double J Ranch the opportunity to sell alcohol, spirits, and I was actively involved in the annexation, with it. So, but it's an excellent plan. It's very, very good, and I can just tell by reading it how much work and how much labor went into this, and I appreciate that. But there's just a couple things that.
That's fine. I appreciate your review.
And I'm sorry to come at the last minute, with this, but I just think we can discuss some more things during hazardous mitigation. But I just things that I think that I wanted to bring to your attention. And I will leave this. And I also have one on the hazardous mitigation, and they evolve around the same things. So, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you for the clarification. Yep, things have changed a ton. Mr. Morris?
Yeah, so I'm on planning commission, as you guys I think all know. And the process, was a little slower than what we had planned, mainly because we've added information from the housing assessment study, as well as the hazard mitigation. So, but I feel like, overall went well. Participation from the townships. Municipalities left some to be desired, I would say. And especially with their maps, we relied on them for their maps, and I think we got one updated map, future land use map. But yeah, overall it went pretty smoothly. And Chair, if I may, could we invite Mr. McKean to make any comment too, since he's the Planning Commission Chair, if he wants to add any feedback to this?
I'd love to hear from Gary if he has anything to add.
I think it's important when you read the county master plan that one would understand that this is what the county touches, what the county is involved with, and what our perspective is as the commission. And when we drill down into some of the data, we can't specifically get into how many people work at a particular factory. We don't have that data. That's private information. And if one were to read through our county program, our county 5-year plan, it was more specific to Rothbury, for example. I don't mind to pick on you, Bob, but I will. They would want to go to the Grant Township 5-year plan and specifically look at what their plan says to get more specific into the minutia of all of the other things. Writing a master plan like this for the county is a pretty broad scope. We considered a lot of different things as one would read in the program or in the document. And it's really a snapshot of where we are right now and what we like to see, what we feel it could be in the next 5 years. So, housing is a big consideration. That's why we waited to have the housing section put into it. There's a lot of things that go into it. we could spend a lot more time to be more specific on every little question, I guess. But it's difficult, as a general commission. And it is, as the planning commission, it's our obligation to have an accurate 5-year plan. Stefan has been very good and very courteous to us. We went through a number of revisions before it got to the 63-day waiting period. And it's important to us to make it as accurate as we can. But keep in mind, it's a countywide thing. We can't get everything right at this point. So, my comment.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So, and just to echo and to add to what Mr. McKean is saying too, yes, I think you all know, but this is obviously nothing is forced. We can't, none of these things it really has no, what's the word I'm looking for, meat to it, where as far as, what am I looking for? You know what I'm saying?
Enforcement or authority.
Yeah.
Authority.
Yeah, we can't, and that's okay. It's just more of a vision. It's more of a plan for the county. It's looking, and that's what, when we went to the MTA meeting and talked with them about, what the purpose of it is so that two townships that, are next to each other are knowing what each other is doing, so that, at the road line, you're not building a big industrial park right next to a housing complex, necessarily. That's the whole point of the planning commission, right? Is to help the townships to look together as to, that we're a big group, working all for the same goal. So, and then also visions for infrastructure on page 36. I just wanted to point out the second point says roadway conditions are no longer among the worst in the state. And I just want to celebrate that because it's true. I mean, I just driving through Oceana County already is improved. Yeah,
And it's going to get a lot
we got
better.
the bond coming up. It's going to come up even better. And then the sixth one down, it says high-speed internet services are available and affordable countywide. And those are visions, but these are actually happening. These things are, when we first started writing this about a year ago, those things maybe were still lacking, 2 years ago, but now, there's so much improvement in the roads and in the internet, the broadband in our county, and I want to celebrate that. I think that's great stuff.
Thanks. Thank you.
With the county that we don't have zoning, as we all know. Townships do the zoning. And it's real hard if you start looking at larger towns, or larger counties rather, like Muskegon, or like Ottawa, or Kent, where they have zoning, master plan that has the zoning. It's a whole different animal. So it's hard to have the vision to go forward without enforcement or without an impetus to make it happen. It's kind of befuddling a little bit, to say the least. And Phil and I talked about this, but trying to get the planning commission to envision bringing other partners into the program and trying to reach out to the townships and be part of what the townships can use as a resource. One of the things we're going to work on next Thursday, I just submitted to administrator's office the agenda, and we're going to look at the possibility of building a reference library that the townships can use to look a little bit deeper into, well, how do we work together? How do we have a number of brochures I've gotten from the American Planning Association that are kind of give you food for thought in different programs like that. So our job, as I see it and as I understand it, is to really be the lead out into the community and try to put a better face, if you will, on the relationship between county and the townships. So, Stefan, thank you for all the work that you've done on this. It's been a pleasure, and now we're working on the rec plan. We're not done.
No.
Tim,
Yes.
Mr. Beggs?
Yep. So you guys have hit on one of my big concerns. Was I was trying to reconcile in my head how we have township zoning and not countywide, and then a master plan. But so it sounds like there's some interaction from the townships, probably fairly limited. But this is kind of a big idea that hopefully will help. I mean, the townships are in charge of their townships, and the county has no authority to dictate how they use their land. That's an individual township. But does Windsor-Dick help individual townships with their own 5-year plans? I don't know. I'm curious to know.
We have in the past, yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So hopefully it's kind of a 10,000 foot view of a 5,000 foot problem. them, I guess.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So the townships make ordinances, you know, and the state makes laws.
Mhm.
We're left really with trying to be the middle guy, if you
Yeah,
will. Trying to put the, I'll call it the balls in the air. And, that's what we're doing.
Sure, sure. And then, one last thing, I didn't read this thing word for word, but it didn't look like there was really any, DEI statement or anything like that, so, no, you're shaking your head, no? That makes me happy, thank you, because, yeah, I'd raise a stink if there were. So, I think that, you know, what I saw, there was, you know, the action steps and the summaries, and there was, it was well worded for our county.
Mr. Walker?
There's no way for me to sugarcoat this. And there's gonna be people that are gonna be offended for it. We hired an organization to help us with the master plan, and I certainly hope we don't adopt it when there's some basic things in there that are wrong. I realize the townships and the villages and the city of Hart all have their own unit of government, and I realize they go forward with it. But we have maps in there that show one of our villages being one size on one map and one size on another map. It slipped through the cracks, and I just would like to see it corrected, because people are gonna pick up the Oceana County Master Plan, and it's such a good document and a detailed document. They're not gonna go back to Grant Township or the village of Rothbury and ask for their master plans or their recreation plans to see if they're the same thing and see if it's different. And I would say the same thing if it was in Hart or if it was in Pentwater or any place else. I'm just familiar with this area.
Mr. Walker, Mr. Harrison.
Yes, Mr. Morris?
So I, your point's well taken. I mean, I think that should be changed. It should be accurate where it's incorrect. I will say we got our information from the townships. That's so that the information that's in here, we requested it, and that's
The maps and everything came
Yeah.
from.
Mhm.
The
Right,
map,
correct.
the
Well,
map,
I'm not sure
The-
what maps he's referring to.
the maps have Windsor Dick's seal on.
But didn't we the land use maps
I don't.
came from the locals?
I don't know that
Is that what-
Mr. Walker's talking about the land use, you know, composite map. You know, there's a number of kind of informational maps and kind of references in,
Yeah.
so
Then I would ask Mr. Walker to identify the ones of a concern and
All you
we'll
gotta
bring
do
it.
is look at the maps.
And
Well,
we'll-
like
One little
page,
square.
page 27 is a floodplain map, and Village of Rothbury is showing, Double J annexed. And then I think there's farther down, the end of the document. I think I saw. I don't see, just a quick glance, I don't see the other maps, but
Yeah.
maybe those were in the hazard mitigation.
I would get together with Mr. Walker and we can get a clarification on those things. And for the record, what I would like to add to this is that the Oceana County Planning Commission is made up of Vincent Greiner as the chair, Gina Loera, the vice chair, John Stivers is the secretary, and on the board is Alan Bloom, Paul Cutter, John Foss, Gary McKean, Phil Morse, and from Hesperia, Scott Rumsey. So this is a plan that was put together by this board also. So, we've got to get it right. We've got enough people that have been in on this, and hopefully it'll be corrected and adopted.
It's pretty minor.
Yep.
It's very minor.
Thank you, sir.
And can I add just one more thing?
Yes, sir.
So, and to your point, Tim, too, we actually asked townships if they wanted to participate I mean, obviously for public comment and feedback, not public comment, but their feedback, but also see if they wanted to join in the master plan, create a master plan, kind of piggyback it with us to
Right.
make it a little cheaper for them.
Yeah.
And it was, nobody had interest in
None of them
that.
took that offer. Interesting.
One other thing for, Tim, for the commissioners who don't know, Mason County has countywide zoning.
That's
And Paul and I are in the the health department's in the problem with that right now that we can discuss later, so.
Well, and also, you know, in all fairness too, at the Newfield Township Board meeting last week, Gary came and represented, the planning commission at that meeting, and it was a contentious meeting. If you'll go and look at Newfield Township's, video of that meeting, for the last two meetings, an ordinance that they had passed as far as junk on the porch, there was pushback from within the community that we don't need rules that tell us how much garbage and trash we can keep in our yard or whether we can't. So it is a contentious, zoning has always been a problem. Ordinances create more issues, but yeah, I thank you, Gary, for showing up in Newfield that night and giving them a vision, and also inviting those people to the classes that you had offered that night. So yeah, wherever we go, we're not the big city. We're not Muskegon County. We're not Mason County. We're unique. Thank you, sir.
So may I,
Please.
advise or provide my perspective on the next steps here is, this body has the option of either moving forward with adoption at this point or officially sending it back to the planning commission for certain revisions. So, if that's the case, then it would be best to submit a list back to the planning commission.
Mr. Erickson, I think these are clerical things that just need to be corrected.
Does that have to go through a review process if we make any changes again?
It really depends on how substantial the changes are. So you can also approve with, you know,
Stipulations.
with revisions.
Because I was just looking, I did find one map, page 15, it's a sensitive environments meeting, map that just the outline of Village Rothbury is incorrect. Just a quick glance, that's what I've seen.
If I may, Paul?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it looks like 19, 27, 35, and 44 are correct. And then I did find 15 was missing it. But if it's a change of that particular map, I don't know whether that needs to be reviewed again.
No, it should not need to be reviewed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Department head report. Mr. McKean, you're on your feet.
I have nothing to say.
Any other department head reports?
I will say something. Gary McKean, Oceana County Parks. I was informed yesterday by one of Stefan's counterparts who we work with, Fallon Chabala, who is our environmental coordinator, that we still have not gotten the approval of SHPO, which is basically the state of Michigan, and basically it has to do with artifacts, potential artifacts in the Marshville Dam project. So everything was supposed to have been in order back in January. Somebody was off sick for a while, it went to somebody else's desk. We're trying to pin it down. Contractor's ready to start on April the 15th. This is on the Marshville Dam project. So we expect to hear something pretty soon. I was told yesterday that there were 2 questions that were answered last week, and hopefully we can get this thing started. I just want to say also that the 5-year master plan that we have with Windsor-Dick is really a very good economically cohesive or cost to the county. I learned through MTA meeting last night that some townships are paying as much as $35,000 for, or potentially a very high rate for 5-year master plan. Ours with Windsor-Dick for both the county and the Parks and Rec plan is around $8,000 combined. So, you know, it's something we have to do. I'm not saying it shouldn't be correct, but I am saying it's good to work with someone like Windsor-Dick, with Stefan, who is doing a lot of programs like this. Yeah, it's a very good economically astute type of program. So
Yeah, and for clarification, SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, and if you have anything that has anything to do with archaeology, construction and a dig, they can bind you right up, so hopefully there'll
So the
be.
holdup actually are the twin tubes or the triple tubes underneath Marshfield Dam roads were put in 1967. They don't qualify quite for the 50 year, but they said, well, we're gonna throw them in there anyway. So they've looked at those, they've had 2 studies on the whole property. They found some chert, which is considered to be an Indian relic, but no arrowheads and nothing like that. I venture to say that there are very few places in Oceana County, if you dig deep enough, that you won't find an arrowhead. I have an old jar full of them at my house from my grandparents' farm. But long story short, we have to abide by what the law is, and the engineers are basically calling the shots on this. We're not gonna start and get this done and leave a liability out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Any other department head reports? Hearing none, we'll adjourn this portion.
You, public comment.
Yes.
Public comment.
Oh, would there be any public comment?
There is. Sorry about that. Gary McKean, Oceana County Conservation District. I've asked Tracy Biard, our administrator, to consider the county board adopting a resolution that was adopted by the Chippewa County board. And it basically has to do with MDARD basically is recommending that the termination of local conservation district technicians who administer the MEEP program. We have 97 farms, I believe, that are MEEP farms. When you drive by farms and forest property, you'll see a nice big white sign with blue and multicolors on there. This property is MEEP MEEP certified. So MEEP is the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assessment Program, and it's something that we worked very hard. Linda Ahrens has been our MEEP coordinator for many years, with 40 years experience between Mason County and Oceana County. And her job is threatened to be removed. They're basically looking to take 38 MEEP technicians and go to 24 state employees, which will work out of their houses. So this will have a detrimental effect not only on the conservation district, but certainly on farmers that are used to working with Linda on a more personal basis. And they're also looking in the governor's budget to take $1 million out of the funding that goes into conservation districts. So the last 2 years, the conservation districts of 83 counties have split $3 million. It comes down to be $40,000 to be used at the discretion of the conservation district. What they're proposing now is to drop that from $3 million to $2 million. As a result of that, the budget then would go to $28,000 through the district. We've done some amazing programs and projects through the conservation district in the last several years, hiring technicians, hiring an educator, getting more people involved in our county parks, and certainly more in the conservation district area. And that's gonna probably have to be considered strongly by the Conservation District Board. So I would ask if you review the opportunity to review the resolution that was drafted by Chippewa County, and if you feel so moved to possibly put the stamp of Oceana County. It's basically asking the governor to consider not cutting the budget, and for MDARD to reverse their decision to take the MEEP program back and keep it where it is with the conservation districts. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. McKean. Any other public comment? Mr. Carlson.
I would like to give an economic development update, since this is the appropriate committee, I believe. So we just completed our regional comprehensive economic development strategy. It's a SEDS. I'll put on my different hat, my economic development hat for Windsor Day. So it's our 5-year regional economic development plan that qualifies our 5 counties and all local governments, nonprofits within the region to apply to the EDA, it's the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration, for funding economic assistance and programs. So that's a big step for us, just to maintain that. One thing that relates to locally is I'm also helping, working with West Shore Community College as they work to develop a multifunctional facility here in Hart. It's still conceptual, they're still identifying funding, but EDA, by way of, enabling from the SEDS, is that we're considering including EDA funding to kind of build out or add training equipment and help equip that facility for economic development, workforce development purposes. So there's a direct tie there. I just want to make you aware that the SEDS is available, and it was approved by our Windsor Day board earlier this year, or earlier this week. So, yeah. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Erickson,
Yes, Mr. Walker.
before you adjourn, if any of my fellow commissioners don't have any objections to it, I think we should ask the county administrator to look into this funding loss for the MEAT program and to bring it back to us as a resolution for the next meeting. I think that's a very important thing to keep, work on keeping as much as possible in Oceana County. No objection. Tracy, would you please look into it and bring it back to us?
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
there's a copy of it right there, sir.
I just forwarded it, I sent an email to
Yep.
commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other public comments? This portion is adjourned. Mr. Hardy.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Finance Administration Committee. Maybe we have a roll call, please.
Mr. Hardy?
Here.
Mr. Banks?
Here.
Mr. Morse?
Here.
Mr. Erickson?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
And ask for approval of the meeting minutes from March 14th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Begg, supported by
Morse?
Ms. Morris. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Are there any changes to the current agenda? Hearing none, I will ask for approval of the agenda.
So move, Walker.
Support.
Walker, supported by Mr.
Support.
Erickson. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Is there any public comment at this time for Finance Administration Committee? Hearing none, we'll move on. Administrator Biard, medical care facility millage renewal, 2024-37.
At our last meeting, the board asked for some changes to the proposed millage, and I sent that on to the county attorney, provided you a copy of that yesterday, and there was changes made with regards to the renewal and restoration, and also wording of up to the $2, which is what the board had discussed at that meeting. So those changes have been made, and that was what was provided to you.
Mr. Hardy.
Yes, Mr. Walker.
I'm glad we had an open discussion about that at the last meeting, because that would have been a big issue for us if that had gotten, onto the ballot as done. Thank you for reaching out to the attorneys, and I'm glad that it's corrected and it's the way it is.
Yeah. Everybody read the red line? Okay.
Does this need to go back to the medical care board for them to ratify and then come back to us for approval?
I don't think so.
I did provide them a copy
Yeah.
as well. I included him in the emails, which is what he had asked of me.
We're ready to go.
After the meeting.
Yeah, I think it's just a better clarification
There's
on the
no
resolution.
meaning changes in the
No.
edits, just
No.
clarification.
which I think is good. Thank you.
Ken, do you mind? For the people who weren't here, what this allows is two changes. One is the renewal millage, not new millage. It's a renewal. And the second one is it says up to 2 mills. The first one said it was 2 mills, so that means it has to be collected 2 mills at all times. But if it's up to, like most millages says, each year the County Board of Commissioners sets how much of that 2 mills there will be levied. So it gives some flexibility there. And those are the two changes in it.
Yeah, I think it clarified the context of it by stating that, the adding the Headley back in and the millage request. Any other comments on that?
That's good to go.
Okay, moving on. Mr. Carlson and Mr. Maloney, consideration of resolution 2407 to adopt the hazardous mitigation plan.
So, hazard mitigation. What can I tell you? Do you have any questions?
I can make this easier this time, Mr. Hardy, if you want to jump right into it. I just have a couple points that I want to bring up. There are several maps in there. Look with the village of Rothbury, with the zoning, with the size of it, and I don't know how we do this when it's already been approved by the state. Does it have to go back to a final approval?
No,
So
it's not.
there's several of those there in it. You can find them on page 15, and I'm going to give you this. On page 15, when it talks about Grant Township, it says one of the significant features of Grant Township is that Double J Ranch lies in Grant Township. And it doesn't say anything in under the village of Rothbury about Double J Ranch lying in the village of Rothbury. Slipped through. It actually, politically and geographically correct, it is in the village of Rothbury. I read with interest, and there need to be no action taken on some of these at all. I put them in parentheses. I read with interest the lightning strikes and the lightning issues, and knowing that data is not collected on those very often. I personally had a pine tree hit alongside my house, and a lightning strike went into my house and my truck. Did $12,000 damage on my truck and $61,000 damage on my house. They happen a lot, but they're not tracked. And that was in 2022. Another one that we don't need is, and I'm sure a lot of us sitting in the room remember when we talk about civil disturbances, there was one at Silver Lake. They could have got pretty ugly. Were you working with the Sheriff's Department then, Sheriff?
Not quite.
Not quite. I was working with Ludington Police Department. They sent 2 carloads of people down from Ludington because of it. So it was probably about 78 or 79. Pretty close, or the early 80s?
I thought it was early 80s.
Early 80s. So, no real change. The other thing is that we talked about before is the school has not been in Rothbury for a long time. I read with interest the building code, and having been the things about the building code, and having been a licensed builder since 1988, and this doesn't need any change at all. But the state of Michigan has adopted the International Building Code, and local units of government cannot modify it, cannot change it, cannot do anything to it. We couldn't change anything on it if we wanted to. We're forbidden to. Everybody is under the state building code. We used to have 3 building codes in Michigan, and now we're under the international, and nobody can change anything to do with it. And the last thing that I have was just a question. In the back of the book, when you talk about the emergency responders in Oceana County, there's a chart, and I have to apologize, I didn't put this down, didn't put the page number. It's in the 130s or so, 120s, 130s. When you had the list of units of government with emergency responders, I noticed that New Era, Rothbury Police Department were not listed as emergency responders. It wasn't checked in those boxes. Are they considered emergency responders?
think so.
You know, but I'm just gonna give you these. I don't think we have to belabor it anymore or discuss it anymore. And I apologize. I never had the opportunity to read these documents before, or if I had the opportunity, I didn't. I didn't read it, but that's another topic about having 5 commissioners. I mean, just to tell people, last week, outside of Hart, I was at 8 different meetings representing Oceana County, as far away as Cadillac and Cadillac and Holland and Ludington. So it's interesting. But thank you for what you've done, Troy. Thank you for what you've done, and I'll just pass these on to you, you know, for you to look at them.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun-packed week of reading for 170 some pages, and with a hazardous mitigation plan over 60, I think, and give or take a few, but.
You know, it was the most interesting novel I've read in a long time.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You know, but
Yeah.
I like these type of things, you know, and I do enjoy reading these type of things. And please don't think I'm trying to be critical, but I live right in that neighborhood, you know, and so.
No, it was a lot of good work. I mean, when you read through the documents, there's a lot of research that went into that, and there's a lot to cover. Definitely. Any other?
And I was just looking and to only have 2 visitors at the public meeting is I wished it were better too. You know, you publish it, you have it, you hold it, the feedback, you get 2 people, so it's just not a hot topic.
All right.
Mr. Hardy.
Yes.
So just, I guess more, first of all, thanks Troy and Stefan for you guys' work in this.
Yeah.
Moving forward, so we want to approve it, I would presume we're gonna approve it here. And then, but we also want the townships and municipalities to approve it as well. That gives them a better chance to get the support from FEMA or federal authorities if needed.
Yep, I can touch on that too. Oh, by all means, I'll help you out.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of discussion on this. So listen to this, sit back and listen to everything. It sounds like the clerical changes that can be adopted with the recommended changes. Once it's adopted, we'll work together to create a cover letter that will go out to all the governmental agencies, the villages, the city, all the townships, and we'll give the link because they can't send that through an email. It's so large. It will also have a copy of your resolution saying you adopted, so they know it's been adopted. And then we will have it in there asking for the participation and offering that if they would like one or both of us to come speak at their meetings, that we're happy to come do that on there. Looking at the history around us in different counties, like in Mason County, a little couple months ahead of us, and they had some of them that just blindly signed on, no problem at all. There's others that didn't seem to care and didn't want anything to do with it. And then they did have a few that did want further clarification. So for you guys to know that myself and Stefan will be offering our services to them to go speak to them and answer any questions or concerns they may have over the overall document.
My one recommendation that when you probably are thinking of this already, but when you talk about participation, you could be specific what that means. You know, they could just think that talking about it, I don't know. You know,
I have resolutions already made for them. I went through and made every single municipality their own resolution with their names on individual instead of a, normally we can do a blank one says fill in your stuff here. I actually already filled it out for all of them. It's ready to go. It just is ready for their signature and date and witness on it for adopting that resolution. So the language is already there. And it's all taken care of already, so we're ready to include that. So each individual municipality will get a resolution specific to them.
And I would like to add that the plan is intentionally set up as a multi-jurisdictional plan. And so what you've done at the county level is you've provided a service to the local communities. By doing it in this way, and each community has its own profile and has its own specific information, so that that at the end of the process, they're eligible to adopt it and also be eligible to access, mitigation funding either before or after a disaster declaration. And I would like to add that excellent participation from local communities. In order to have that privilege of passing a resolution. They have to participate in the planning process before adoption, before county adoption. And every community except for Hesperia participated and responded to our requests for engagement, basically. So that's the better rate than the previous two editions of this plan. So I want to give you your credit for sponsoring this plan that benefits your communities too, and thank you to Troy for your responsiveness and partnership in doing this.
A lot of it had to do when you guys took that back to your local entities, that we saw a big spike on, so that was a good process. In the future, we probably should just make it an automatic process that we have that kind of involvement.
Well, Mr. Maloney, I think a lot of it was due to your diligence on trying to get that response.
It was definitely a team effort.
On that note, if you would just let us know if you've been invited to a meeting or when you send that out, if you're invited to a meeting, I think it'd be good for all of us if we're able to attend that meeting, just to voice our support for it. If we can't attend the meeting, we can, send emails or make phone calls, but just help support that.
Absolutely. So, appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for the hard work.
Thank you.
Administrator Biard, consideration to dispose of a county car and transfer to the airport for the purpose of a courtesy car 2024 40.
So the airport manager, Kurt Lohman, came to me some time ago about their courtesy car, and for those of you who do not know, the airport has a courtesy car so that when people fly in, they have the ability to take the car and drive to town to go to eat or shopping or whatever they plan to do, and gets them back to the airport. So I had talked to the Sheriff's Department about seeing if they had a vehicle available for them. Ryan came up with a vehicle and stated, Kurt informed me that we needed to do a disposal of the vehicle through the county, and then the transfer would be made to the airport authority, which is what the Board of Commissioners needs to do with that if you would like that transfer to go through. They would then purchase the vehicle for $1. They're responsible for the insurance. The county is not, so that would all be taken care of once the transfers are made.
I think I ran the VIN number. It was like a 2013 Ford Taurus or something like that.
Yes.
Was that being a 13? I doubt that was a patrol vehicle. So was that a forfeiture or a seizure or something like that?
Detective?
It was the undersheriff's prior car.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
for a while, Sheriff Barber had driven the car while he was here, and then Ryan drove it for several years. If
Okay.
you remember that black,
Okay.
that
Yep.
black Ford.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes, that'll be good.
It's out at our
So it's-
old pole
yeah.
barn. It's in, the body's in good condition.
Yeah.
It had the darn thing. It seemed to be a magnet for deer. It had several deer accidents with Sheriff Barber. Since Ryan's been driving it back and forth from his office from his house, there hasn't been so much trouble with it.
Lower risk.
But it's got a few miles on it, but still a good car.
Yep, okay, good. Didn't even know that was still around.
It was in the building, yeah.
He's pulling rank a little bit. I pulled the VIN number. I can't pull the VIN number.
It was in the notes.
I'm
I
teasing.
just have,
I'm teasing.
I have certain information readily available.
I'm just teasing.
All right, moving on, Administrator Biard, consideration for approval of budget amendment for elections, interim elderly, Shelby Township, Community Park, 2024-41.
So at the last meeting, I said that there would be more budget adjustments with relative to the elections, which is what the one is for, and then the other two are just revenues that came in and expenditures that went out, and I'm just asking for the board to make those adjustments in those budgets.
Where are those revenues that came in for the township park, is that through the grants or?
Yeah, it's through the, Community Foundation.
Okay.
Yes.
Questions or comments? All right. Lieutenant Snyder, consideration to apply for a MMRMA RAP grant for the purchase of a body scanner.
I'm gonna defer to the boss.
All right, Sheriff?
I assume everybody had an opportunity to review the material. We have a great opportunity to pick up a great piece of equipment that can ensure safety within our facility for both the inmates and the staff. We have a very stable funding mechanism to pay for this between the grant opportunity with MMRMA and then some of this sales of commissary. The lieutenant was just explaining to me this last year we had $59,000 in that line of revenue for the sales of commissary to help cover this. There's several counties around the state and a lot more around the nation that are proceeding with this type of technology. It's for the least invasive, most thorough ability to completely search individuals when they're entering our facility. We, even in our small facility, have suffered the incident of several people sneaking in contraband, specifically narcotics, drugs of all shape and form, and using those drugs while in the facility, even though having been a participant in a thorough search. One just within a couple of weeks ago, we had a near suicide attempt with an individual who we were sure had been in the facility for days, but apparently appeared high as a kite, to use a professional term, and nearly committed suicide. This device that we're attempting to provide to the county would prevent issues from like that being able to happen. Myself and Lieutenant Schneider went to Manistee yesterday and viewed the same piece of property in project, and we got to see it. Their jail administrator took us through it, showed us several of their uses of it. Everybody that comes in, it's a quick exposure. They can expose up to several hundred times per year, and it's very safe. It's quick. The company that sells it is out of Minnesota. Manistee was saying how good they have been on servicing and keeping up to date the device. It works very, very well, showing all forms of contraband or others. They showed us several different examples. Obviously, anything in their mouth, anything in their genitalia, if they've got something stuffed away, it'll be seen, whether it's metallic, plastic, chemical, if there's pills, if there's weed wrapped in cellophane, in a balloon, in a condom, it's seen by this device.
Sure.
Mr. Walker?
One question, Sheriff.
Sir.
Is there a maintenance agreement or is there a certification on this like the one we had before that has to be done every year?
There are some options for maintenance, up to, I believe it's up to 5 years, is that correct?
Yeah, so it comes with a 1 year, and then you get a 3 and a 5.
Oh, do you know what that fee is? That it's not like the scanners we had before, is it? That they were so very, very expensive.
Yes, so the technology has advanced greatly on those. The units have gotten smaller. There's no moving parts to the unit.
Lieutenant Snyder, do you have any idea what that is annually then afterwards?
Yes. Were you guys able to open up the little icon for the actual quote? Because in the back, page 2 of that shows you what the warranties are. They're, to me, maybe not to you guys, I think that 3 to 5 year warranty is quite pricey, but so is the machine itself. So I guess I rely on you guys' professional opinion on whether we feel we need to upgrade to a 3 or 5 on that. We're not seeing or hearing about any substantial maintenance problems they're having with it. Matter of fact, some of the big boy counties down south are buying a second one. So they got two in their facilities. So if there was something out there, I don't think they'd be doubling up and getting that second scanners in the jails.
Some of them are using the opioid settlement money to buy some of these.
That's what I wanted
You know, that is being used. The funding mechanism that we're proposing is, I guess, leaving that opioid money for something else available in the county.
Well, you hit on a very good point, Sheriff. If there is a maintenance fee to do these, you know, on a regular basis, why don't we look at the opiate settlement money, budgeting so much money and expense of that to your department to pay that maintenance fee or service fee for the next 5 or 10 years or however long we can do it. Pay it out there so we don't have to worry about where the money, you don't have to be concerned, nobody has to be concerned when it needs maintenance or needs work on it. We've got money set aside from the opiate settlement to do that work on it.
That's good use of the money, yeah.
People, I think there's probably two people here that would vote for that. That are on that opiate board, you and I.
Yeah.
What would that 5-year cost?
We could open a quote.
Yeah.
If you're not able to open it, I actually print a copy for everybody.
Cool.
Can I make a comment while he's digging that
Yes,
out?
please.
I just think, yeah, I was a little bit surprised at the cost. It's the opposite of what you'd think. I figured it'd be, something like this would be 3 times more, you know, at $142,500, for essentially it's a full body x-ray machine. And then, you know, a $50,000 grant if we qualify, and then $92,500 coming out of the jail commissary fund. That, it seems like a great deal to me.
It shouldn't have to come out of tax dollars.
Right.
And, yeah.
And the benefit for our jail liability, because, you know, for the benefit of those listening, if we, as soon as we take an inmate into custody, the county, the taxpayers of Oceana County are responsible for his medical care or her medical care. So if they attempt suicide while they're in the shower by down in the 4 grams of meth they had hidden, that health care is on us. So $142,000 worth of prevention is, that's a really good deal.
So Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
The 3 additional years of maintenance for a total of 4 years, the 3 additional years will cost $26,700. I think we ought to look at opiate settlement money and pay that money for that right up front.
I agree, that sounds great.
Yeah, I think Manistee decided the same way.
It's a good use of those money.
Then
We're pretty satisfied with the unit. I mean, it sounds like
They had one hiccup with it. They called out to Minnesota and they got on a plane and were there the next day. It sounded like they were very responsive to get them back up and moving. And so every individual comes into Manistee County, they all come stand in the photo booth for a minute, you know, run them through, and then they have a shot that they know that they're clean of contraband, weapons, etc.
I agree with Commissioner Beggs that the limit of liability.
Oh, the liability is, yeah.
And this is obviously, it's coming through MMRMA, so
Right, yeah.
we know that they like this venture.
And also, on top of that, the liability, our corrections officers don't have to do the search, right? Like, they don't have to physically search them anymore,
So
which they could punched or hit or whatever.
We'll still do our pat down search, you know, so we'll check for the large objects.
Yeah.
And we'll immediately put them into this area. It's gonna be right next to the intake shower. And everybody will be scanned from head to toe. You know, the biggest gripe that I get, and it's a gripe as far as part of the job, but I guess it's just become more gross over the years. Of what my female staff has seen, what my male staff has seen, day in and day out. And you gotta respect that, so none of us wanna look at that.
Yeah.
and this will take that off the table.
And so then the obvious question hopefully is, can a woman scan a man or can a man scan a woman? Does this take that problem out of our equation?
Yes, yeah, there's,
So this
there's
has
no need.
really helped a lot.
It is.
If you don't have a gal on duty at 2 a.m, you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's better yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds great.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, more
Appreciate
questions,
it.
we can set over here.
Gary left.
Yeah. Mr. Giard, administrator's review for select claims for payment and administrator's report.
So the list of claims for payment are in your packet. Are there any questions on those? Okay, if not, I will move on. There was a pretty lengthy report, but there are some things on that report that I'd like to point out to you. We did have the materials management meeting with Wimserdick and with our surrounding county administrators. That meeting went very well. We provided a list of items that we would like to see included in the agreement. Eagle has asked that, I believe it's called the DPA, is governmental. So that's why we're looking at Wimserdick for this. And once we have that agreement prepared and ready to go, that will be coming to you, to the Board of Commissioners for approval. Next, so we've been working on the newsletter mailing, and that was given to Phil to take a look at. We were adding some more things in there, and wanted to talk with the board to see about how you would like that distributed. We do have some emails from ones that we've been gathering off of the website. However, there aren't a lot of those. Would you like to consider mailing those out? We are looking at roughly $3,000 to do so.
We have two printed medias that circulate in the county. Is there any way we could attach them to both of those? To the Herald Journal and to the Voice?
Yeah, I'm sure that we could probably.
Why don't we check with that, see if we can get them into circulation? And then have some that are put in for people, some at different locations where people come, and people can pick them up. Each one of our townships and our village and our city offices and stuff in the public places.
Well, if you could get some public notices printed too with the email, link.
QR or a link.
QR, yeah, and you put a QR in it that they could then download.
We'd be happy to put a QR in, no problem.
That would probably be a lot less expensive than printing stuff out and allow them to get the information.
Have it handy, and it's
A lot of the older people don't use social media as much.
No, but I mean, if there are some printed ones, it would take a major block of those printed ones down to a smaller quantity, and there's a lot of them that don't pick up printed material anymore. It's all.
Yeah. Well, the Herald Journal, see what it costs to put it in the Herald Journal. Well, supplement in the Voice, see what it costs to put it in there.
Okay, I will do that.
Steve, did you hear that?
You listening?
You were already heard.
All right, so I included some information about the transfer station and the quote for the scale in the administrator's report. And I just wanted to check with the board and see how you would like me to proceed with that.
I would, if I may, Mr. Hardy?
Yes, please.
I'd like to take that to White Lake Excavating and either Wadle or Dave or Halleck or both of them, because I know all of the principals, and show those three owners these scale proposals and ask them what they think about You know,
I think that's a great idea.
and I'll get that back to, you know, as soon as possible. They will probably look at them and say, this is a great scale, this is what to watch out about them, they're in that business. And I'll reach out to Kenny Adams would be a good one for me to go to too.
Yes.
I'll just get it out to the different people who are in that business.
I mean, to me, reading through the quote looked pretty, but it'd be nice to have a professional opinion on it.
Exactly.
But let me do that. Give me 4 copies of each one, but not now, but one, you know, get 4 copies of each one and I'll take them to, and drop them off.
Okay, I will get those to you. So I received a letter from, the Michigan Association of Counties. It is a letter of opposition, and were asking that the counties consider, sending this letter of opposition, from the different counties. And what it relates to is the ARPA funds. We currently, need to have the ARPA funds, committed by the end of this year. However, it allows us an additional 2 years to, spend those funds. It looks as though they're trying to get it all completed by the end of this year. They want it all spent, all done, and MAC is asking for letters of opposition, and I would like to know how the board would like to proceed with that, if you want to do that.
Can you just go, for my own benefit and maybe our benefit,
Yeah.
so this is saying that it has to be spent by the end of this year, all the ARPA money?
Yeah.
Committed.
Designated.
Right.
I thought that's the way it was already.
No, right now it has to be committed by the end of this year, has to be spent by the end of 2026. So we have 2 additional years.
That's the current way it is.
That's the way it is currently.
Right, okay, that's what I thought.
The new way they're trying to do it is they want it all completed by the end of this year, 2024.
Spent.
Oh, they want it all spent.
Spent, committed, all of it,
No.
yes.
Yeah, I would agree with the letter of opposition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I concur.
Yeah, because it was established that way to begin with, even though the interim final rule was
Right.
totally different than the final
Rules
rule.
in the middle of the game.
Yeah, but no, I would agree that that would be,
But it didn't change what we could use it for anything like.
Nope.
no.
Okay.
No. And really, if you look at it, Oceana County is covered anyways because we opted to use it for revenue loss.
Right.
So